What started as a celebratory birthday dinner for my husband quickly turned into a shocking public assault until one phone call brought the restaurant to its knees. The low hum of conversation, the clinking of wine glasses, the scent of garlic and rosemary, it was supposed to be the perfect backdrop for my husband David's birthday. All he'd wanted was a quiet, fancy-ish dinner for the two of us, plus our 6-month-old Leo, who was peacefully dozing in his carrier against my chest. We'd chosen a popular Italian place downtown, the Gilded Spoon, known more for its ambiance than its Michelin stars. We had a reservation, made weeks in advance. We were excited. That excitement lasted for approximately 90 seconds after we walked through the door. The hostess stood at her podium like a queen surveying her underwhelming kingdom. She was a woman in her late 40s, with a face that seemed permanently pinched in disapproval, and a blonde bun wound so tightly it looked painful. Her name tag read, Brenda. She glanced up from her screen, her eyes flicking over David, then me, and then lingering on Leo with a barely concealed sneer. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone suggesting we had wandered in off the street to ask for spare change. "Hi," David said cheerfully, undeterred. "We have a reservation for 2 at 7 o'clock. The name is Carter." Brenda's fingers tapped on her tablet with an agonizing slowness. "Carter," she repeated, drawing the name out as if it tasted foul. I'm not seeing it." "That's odd," I said, shifting Leo slightly. "I have the confirmation email right here." I pulled out my phone, but she waved a dismissive hand. "It doesn't matter. We're fully booked. There will be at least a 45-minute wait for a table to open up." Just then, a white couple, roughly our age, walked in behind us. "Hi, no reservation, just hoping you can squeeze 2 in," the man asked. Brenda gave them a smile that was dazzlingly different from the grimace she'd given us. "Of course. It looks like we have a lovely little deuce that just opened up by the window. Right this way." David's jaw tightened. He stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said, his voice low but firm. "We have a reservation, and you just told us it was a 45-minute wait. You're seating them ahead of us?" Brenda's smile vanished. She looked at David as if he were a bug she was contemplating squashing. "They are a party of 2. You," she said, her eyes cutting to me and the sleeping baby on my chest, "are a party of 3. It's a different table configuration. You'll have to wait." It was a lie, and a flimsy one at that. The table she led them to was a standard 4-top, but I didn't want to cause a scene. It was David's birthday. "It's fine, honey," I whispered, touching his arm. "We can wait." So we waited. We stood by the hostess stand for 10 minutes, then 20, then 40. Multiple parties came and went, all of them white, all of them seated almost immediately. Leo started to stir, letting out a soft, sleepy whimper. I rocked him gently, humming a little tune. It was barely audible over the restaurant's din, but for Brenda, it was like a siren. She marched over to us, her hands on her hips. "You need to control your child," she hissed, her voice a venomous whisper. "This is a respectable establishment, not a daycare. If he's going to make a scene, you need to take him outside." I was stunned into silence for a second. "He's not making a scene," I finally said, my voice trembling slightly with anger. "He just whimpered. And for the record, we've been waiting for nearly an hour with a reservation, while you've seated at least 5 other parties who arrived after us without one." Her eyes narrowed into slits. "People like you," she started, her voice rising, "always think you're so entitled. You think the rules don't apply to you, waltzing in here and demanding special treatment." "People like me," I repeated, my blood running cold. "What is that supposed to mean?" "You know exactly what it means," she spat. Her face was red, her whole body shaking with a rage that was completely unhinged. She took a step closer, invading my personal space. I instinctively held Leo tighter, turning slightly to shield him. "You need to back off," David said, stepping between us. But she wasn't listening. Her eyes were locked on me, filled with a pure, unadulterated hatred that I'd seen before, but never this close, never this raw. "Get out," she snarled. "We don't want your kind here." And then she did it. She raised her hand. It happened so fast I didn't even have time to process it. She didn't slap David, who was right in front of her. She reached around him, her arm a blur, and swung at me. Her hand connected with my cheek with a sickening crack. My head snapped to the side, my earrings clattering against my jaw. The shock was a white-hot flash of pain, followed by a wave of disbelief. But the worst part, the absolute worst part, was that the force of the blow jostled Leo, and he woke up with a terrified, piercing scream. The entire restaurant went silent. Every eye was on us. David roared, a sound of pure fury, and grabbed her arm to stop her from doing it again. Brenda stood there breathing heavily, a triumphant, ugly smirk on her face. A manager came running from the back, his face a mask of panic. "What is going on here? Brenda, what did you do?" I ignored him. I ignored the gasps from the other diners. I ignored everything except the searing pain on my face and the screaming of my terrified child in my arms. I looked Brenda dead in the eye, my voice dangerously calm. "You have no idea who you just put your hands on." I pulled out my phone with my free hand. The manager was stammering apologies, trying to placate me, offering us a free meal, the best table, anything. I ignored him completely. My thumb moved across the screen, finding the contact I needed. "Who are you calling?" the manager asked desperately. "The police? We can handle this internally, I promise." I didn't answer him. I just put the phone to my ear as it started to ring. When a man's voice answered on the other end, I said one sentence. "Mr. Sterling, it's Angela Carter. I'm at your downtown Gilded Spoon location, and your hostess just assaulted me." The manager's face, which had been red and flustered, went completely, utterly white. He looked from my phone to Brenda and then back to me, his mouth hanging open in sheer terror. Brenda's ugly smirk dissolved as if it were wiped clean with acid. The manager, a sweaty man named Richard according to his tag, looked like he'd seen a ghost. His eyes darted between me, the phone, and Brenda, a silent, frantic conversation happening in his head. "Mr. Sterling? Mr. Sterling? The owner?" he stammered, his voice cracking. "I'm fine. Leo's fine," I said into the phone, my voice steady, despite the adrenaline coursing through me. I was deliberately ignoring the chaos erupting around me, focusing only on the calm, deep voice on the other end of the line. "No, he's just shaken up. But your hostess, Brenda, just slapped me across the face while I was holding him." Brenda finally found her voice, a shrill, defensive squawk. "That's a lie. She was causing a scene. Her baby was screaming. She was being aggressive. I put my hand up to create distance." David let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. "You reached around me and assaulted my wife. There are 50 people in here who saw it." He swept his arm across the room, and a few diners nodded in confirmation, their faces a mixture of shock and disgust. "Stay right where you are, Angela," Mr. Sterling's voice commanded through the phone. "Don't let that manager move her an inch. I'm 10 minutes away." I met the manager's terrified gaze. "Mr. Sterling would like you to ensure Brenda doesn't go anywhere," I said, my tone flat and cold. "He's on his way." If Richard had been pale before, he was now translucent. He spun on Brenda. "What did you do?" he hissed, grabbing her by the arm. "What in God's name were you thinking?" The next 10 minutes were the longest of my life. David took Leo from me, rocking him gently, his large hand a comforting weight on our son's back, as his cries slowly subsided into hiccuping sobs. My cheek throbbed with a dull, persistent ache. The entire restaurant was paralyzed in a state of suspended animation. The clinking of cutlery had stopped. Conversations had died. Everyone was watching the drama at the hostess stand, waiting for the final act. Richard the manager paced back and forth like a caged animal, muttering to himself, while Brenda stood stock still, her face a hard mask of defiance that was beginning to crack around the edges with genuine fear. She kept shooting me venomous looks, as if this were somehow my fault. Then a sleek black sedan pulled up to the curb outside, stopping directly in front of the restaurant's large picture windows. The driver's side door opened, and a man emerged who commanded attention before he even stepped inside. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, and he moved with an unhurried grace that spoke of immense power. He was also a black man. The moment he walked through the door, a hush fell over the room that was so profound it felt like all the air had been sucked out. He didn't even glance at the manager who scurried toward him, babbling apologies. His eyes found me immediately. He walked straight to our little family, his expression a mixture of deep concern and controlled fury. "Angela," he said, his voice softer now but still carrying the weight of authority. "Are you all right? Is the baby okay? Hey!" He gently touched Leo's head, his large hand incredibly tender. "We're okay, Robert," I said, managing a small, shaky smile. Just shocked. Robert Sterling was my former boss. I had been his executive assistant for 5 years at his private equity firm before I left to have Leo. He was more than a boss. He was a mentor and a friend. He owned a portfolio of businesses across the city, including this restaurant, which he'd bought as a passion project. He nodded, his jaw tight. He looked at the red mark blooming on my cheek, and his eyes darkened. Then he turned. He faced the manager, Richard, who had frozen mid-babble. "You," Sterling said, his voice dropping to a dangerously low temperature. "My office. Now." Richard practically scurried away towards the back of the restaurant. Sterling didn't follow. He just stood there for a moment, letting the silence hang in the air. Then his gaze slowly, deliberately moved to Brenda. She visibly flinched, her defiant posture crumbling completely. She looked small and pathetic under his intense scrutiny. He took a single, deliberate step towards her podium. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Every word he spoke was like a chip of ice. "So, you're Brenda," he said, looking down at her name tag. He met her terrified eyes. "You don't want our kind in your establishment. Is that right?" Brenda's mouth opened and closed a few times, but no sound came out. She was cornered, stripped of her petty authority, and face to face with the living embodiment of her prejudice, who also happened to sign her paychecks. The silence stretched, thick and heavy. I didn't mean," she finally stammered, her voice a pathetic whisper. "I just meant people who cause a disruption." Robert Sterling let out a short, humorless laugh that was colder than any shout. "A disruption? You mean a mother holding her sleeping baby? A family with a reservation you refuse to honor? Is that the kind of disruption you're trained to handle by assaulting a customer?" He took another step forward, his voice dropping even lower. "Let me be crystal clear. Our kind are the people who own this restaurant. Our kind are the patrons who pay your salary. And as of this exact moment, you are no longer part of this establishment. Get your personal belongings. A security guard will escort you from the premises." Tears of rage and humiliation welled in Brenda's eyes. "You can't do that. I've worked here for 7 years. And in 7 minutes you've managed to poison my business and assault my friend," he retorted, his voice like flint. "Your tenure is irrelevant. You are a liability. You are a racist. And you are fired." He turned his back on her, a gesture of ultimate dismissal, and his eyes fell on Richard the manager, who had crept out from the back office and was trying to make himself invisible near the kitchen door. "Richard," Sterling called out, his tone making the manager jump. Richard approached him, head bowed, wringing his hands. "Did you witness this?" "Sir, it was a misunderstanding. It all happened so fast." Richard began to babble. "Did you witness this?" Sterling repeated, enunciating each word with surgical precision. Richard deflated. "Yes, sir. And what did you do?" I came as soon as I heard the commotion." "So you did nothing," Sterling concluded. "You allowed an employee to racially profile, harass, and then physically attack a guest in the middle of your dining room. You didn't de-escalate. You didn't intervene. You didn't lead. Richard, your employment is also terminated, effective immediately. Have security escort him out as well." Richard's face crumpled. The two of them, the aggressor and her silent enabler, were dismissed in less than a minute, as a burly security guard materialized and guided a sobbing Brenda toward the back. Sterling turned to address the entire silent restaurant. "To all of our guests," he said, his voice resonating with sincerity, "I am Robert Sterling, the owner of the Gilded Spoon. I want to apologize for the disgusting and unacceptable behavior you were all forced to witness tonight. This is not who we are, and it is not what we stand for. The 2 individuals responsible are no longer employed here. Your meals tonight, for every single table, are on the house. Please, accept this as a small token of my profound apology." A ripple of murmurs went through the room, and then from a table near the window, a man started to clap. Another joined in, and then another, until the entire restaurant was filled with a wave of applause. It wasn't for the free food, it was for the swift, unequivocal justice. Finally, the storm passed. Robert turned back to us, his entire demeanor softening. The powerful CEO was gone, and our friend was back. "Angela, David, I am so sorry. I can't tell you how embarrassed and furious I am." "It's not your fault, Robert," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's my name on the door. It's absolutely my fault," he insisted. He gestured to the best table in the restaurant, a secluded corner booth. "Please, let me salvage what's left of David's birthday. Allow my head chef to make you whatever you desire. Let my real staff show you the hospitality you should have received from the very beginning." David and I looked at each other. Part of me wanted to just go home and wash the ugly memory of this night away, but another part, a stronger part, felt like leaving would be letting Brenda win. We had come here for a celebration, and we weren't going to be run out by hate. "We'd love that," David said, his hand finding mine. We were led to the booth, and the service that followed was a blur of quiet perfection. The new hostess, a kind young woman pulled from the server staff, couldn't have been more welcoming. Our waiter was attentive and respectful. Robert sat with us for a while, making Leo giggle with a set of shiny keys, before excusing himself to manage the fallout in the back. As our entrees arrived, I looked across the table at my husband, who was watching me with a look of pure love and pride. Leo was snoozing again, this time in a high chair nestled safely beside me. The red mark on my cheek still stung, a faint echo of the ugliness we'd faced. But as I looked around the restaurant, now buzzing with a renewed, lighter energy, I felt a profound sense of peace. The poison had been excised. We had stood our ground, and we had won. It wasn't the birthday dinner we had planned, but in a way it was so much more. We had faced down bigotry and seen it vanquished, all because of one phone call.